Kyrastrate friends, welcome to Classics in Color, your weekly dive into some of the ancient world's wackiest facts. I'm Mark Graves. Today we're going to be reading the epitaphs and funerary inscriptions of some of the most impressive ladies in the ancient world. We all know that women in the ancient world didn't have a lot of access to power, at least direct access, whether that be through military, politics, finances, etc. But one outlet that they did have to directly hold and exercise power, influence in their community to gain honor and a reputation for themselves was through ancient religions. They could hold a wide number of priesthoods. Now, to clarify, priesthoods in ancient Greece and Rome are different from Judaism and Christianity. For example, ancient Greece and Rome, usually you only hold a post for a year, a couple of years. It's not for your whole life, whereas it often is in Christianity and Judaism. And there are a whole lot of other differences, and it would vary a lot depending on how old the priestess is, depending on which god she's serving, which city she's living in, what time period, etc., etc. It gets very complicated and interesting. I'm not going to be covering all of that today, but if you are interested in diving into those details, absolutely check out Portrait of a Priestess by Joan Connolly. There are pretty much just as many priestesses as there are priests in the ancient world, and that is because there was a general rule, there are absolutely exceptions, but generally it was understood that the head priest or priestess should match the god or goddess that they were serving in their age and in their gender. So if we're talking about an old male god, you should probably have an older male priest, somebody who's mature and hopefully wise. And if we're talking about a young female goddess, she should have lots of young female maidens serving her. So there's this idea that they should match, and since there are a lot of female goddesses in the ancient world, you need a lot of priestesses to fill those roles. Like I said earlier, priesthoods usually are only for a couple of years, and they don't demand all of one's time, and they also usually don't demand celibacy. So people usually had careers and families as well as holding these religious posts. Also, when it comes to how does one get selected to be a priest or priestess, it varies. In some cases, cities would basically hold a lottery. Every family would put in a ticket for their daughter, basically, and then somebody would just get chosen at random. So in those cases, it's pretty democratic. The priestess could be just about anyone. But in most cases, the way one gets to hold a priesthood is just to buy it or to exchange favors or political power to get it. So I don't want us to assume when we're reading about these priestesses that we're getting a look into an ordinary woman's life, because a lot of these women do come from a place of privilege, having a wealthy and powerful family. Finally, while a priestess might definitely be helped by her male relatives to pay for a priesthood, and while she would probably share a lot of the benefits she got from holding that priesthood, whether that be financial kickbacks or just elevated social status, there were some benefits that were clearly exclusively just for the priestess herself. So, for example, some priestesses had special fancy throne-like chairs that were front seat, front row at special religious events or social events. And obviously those chairs were just for her, not for her husband, not for her father, just for her. And that kind of tells you something. Without further ado, we're going to start reading some of these inscriptions. I'm really excited because when I read through these the first time, I just really felt like I was connecting with real people, and I just felt so touched and impressed, and I'm really hoping that you get a similar sense when you hear these. But we're going to start off with the Steles of Myrene, who was a priestess of Athena Nike in Athens in the 5th century. Far-shining memorial of Callimachus's daughter, who was the first to watch over the temple of Nike. Her name accompanied her glory, as by divine good fortune she was rightly called Myrene. She was the first to watch over the seat of Athena Nike, chosen from all of the Athenians by a fortunate lot, Myrene. So in this one, we do get a mention of her father, Callimachus, but he's only mentioned once and she's mentioned a whole bunch more times. They repeat it quite a lot, so she definitely gets much more influence, and it really does seem to be about her and not as much about her father. And what's interesting about this one is that it does mention that she was chosen by lot, so it really is possible that she was just a random woman living in Athens, which is pretty cool. Next up, we have the Stele of Kyrastrate. Kyrastrate, wife of Menocrates from Icaria, the handmaid and august priestess of the Mother of all things, is buried in this tomb. Kyrastrate, whom her husband loved while she was alive and grieved for when she died. But she left the light blessed in having seen her children's children. I really love that one. I think it's so sweet. Now, obviously, I know everybody gets a bit of a glow up in their eulogy, right? So I have no idea how accurate any of these are, if these women really were that impressive and if their families really loved them that much. But I love the idea, at least, that her husband really loved her, really missed her. And I think it's cool that there is that note at the end that she got to live long enough to see her grandchildren. I think it's so cool that they thought that was important enough to pay to put on this expensive stele. This next one is actually an epitaph written by Diotimos, and it's actually about two priestesses because they were twin sisters, and it seems to imply that they died on the same day, which is kind of crazy. We two old women, Anaxo and Clinothe, twin daughters of Epicrates, were ever together. Clino was in life the priestess of the Graces, and Anaxo served Demeter. We wanted 9 days to complete our 80th year. We loved our husbands and children, and we, the old women, won gentle death before them. Isn't that just so adorable? I just picture just these little old ladies, these two twin sisters who must have lived a very full, lovely life. I love that they have that note about how they almost made it to 80, right? I wish they had. And my favorite is that last line where it says we won gentle death before them, before all of their other family members. That's pretty important to people in the ancient world. Everybody wants to die before everybody else. So I'm glad that that happened for these two ladies. Next up, we have an epigram written by Callimachus for a priestess of Cybele. I, the old woman who am now dust, was once the priestess of Demeter, and again of the Cybele, and afterwards Cybele. I was patroness of many young women, I had 2 male children, and closed my eyes at a goodly age in their arms. Go in peace. I love this one as well. I love that she was like a mentor or a patron of other young women, presumably other young women serving in priesthoods beneath her. I also love that she died in the arms of her 2 sons. That's so sweet, or at least a sweet idea. And then that last line, go in peace, almost gives me shivers. It almost feels like she's talking directly to us. This last one is the saddest. It was not for an old lady, but for somebody who died young, and you can really feel the grief of her parents in this one. This gracious stone shows a fine woman. Who is she? The letters of the Muses inform us. Menophyla. Why then this white lily and the one carved in the stele? Why the book, the wool basket, and the wreath above? The book is for her intelligence. The wreath tells of her public office. The one tells she is an only child. The basket is the sign of her well-ordered virtue. The flower is for the bloom that a daimon stole away. Lightly does the dust hover over a person like you, though dead. But woe, without child are your parents, to whom you have left tears. So sad, but really beautiful, and I love we get the details about her life and her personality, that she apparently loved to read, and she was really smart, and that she was an only child. I don't know about you guys, but I really felt moved and inspired by these women. It really seems like they were real pillars of their community, of their families. Their families seem to have been so important to them, and I just really relate to that, and I hope I can eventually earn a eulogy as good as these ones, all right? I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Special thank you as always to subscribers and to Patreon members, and I hope to see all of you again next week. Χαίρετε.